I've been living in France for over 17 years now, and there are 4 hard truths about life here that people don't talk about or think about enough. These aren't deal breakers. I'm still here, obviously, but they are realities that hit everyone who moves here. And so the sooner you know about them, the better you can prepare. I'm Susie, I'm American, and I've been living here in Dijon, the capital of Burgundy, since 2008. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention that you can sign up for my email newsletter by scanning this QR code or by clicking on the link in the video description below. All right, let's go. The first hard truth is that you will not fully integrate into French society without speaking French well. Not survival French, not tourist French, but real conversational French where you can discuss ideas, make jokes, and understand cultural references. Of course, really getting to that level in French is going to take hundreds, if not thousands of hours, but it can be a really rich and rewarding experience. I know for myself, I started taking French in middle school, then continued in high school and in college. And even after all of those years in the classroom, I still felt like I really struggled to express myself. So when I first moved to France, my first order of business was getting some French friends so that I could just hang out in a low stress sort of social atmosphere. And I even had someone that I met with on a weekly basis, my language buddy that I just met randomly. This was someone who wanted to practice their English and in exchange, helped me practice my French. I am a huge proponent of reading. As a language teacher, I know that reading is one of the best things that you can do to improve your comprehension, your grammar, and your vocabulary quickly. Of course, watching TV shows and movies, listening to podcasts, all of those things are excellent as well. And there's such a variety of books that you can read in French. So depending on what you like, there's all sorts of options. So I have a few here. For example, you can start with little kids' books. These are illustrated and pretty easy to read. They're meant to be funny, and some of the jokes, you might not understand some of the jokes, but at least it's a good way to get started. This one's really thin and easy and made for kids. There's other books like this. This one is probably more complex in a sense, but it gives you the advantage of having on one side, you have the text in English, and then on the other side, you have the text in French. So you can compare quickly, and you can see how the text has been translated, for example, between English and French. So depending on your level, you could read first in English and then in French, or in the opposite direction, whatever works for you. And then if you're up for more of a challenge, you could read adult fiction in French. Books like this one by Annie Ernaux are written in very simple French, in fact. Granted, it's full of sort of cultural references, which you might not necessarily get, but I think that this book could be accessible to someone who has a sort of intermediate level. Or maybe you're someone who prefers nonfiction. This is a book that I read in English, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which I loved so much, and I really wanted my husband to read it, so I found the translation for him in French. But imagine you had read the book in English, you could get a copy of the book in French, and again, you know the concepts, you know the ideas, so reading it in French should be a bit easier. And this is something that I've done with my kids as well. So we'll read a book, for example, that's written originally in English. And then in this case, I actually haven't read the book in French with my kids, but I do just have it around the house. And if they want to pick it up and read it, they can. They know the story in English, and we have the copy in French as well. So this is something that I would, for example, lend to a student, for example, and tell my students, you should go ahead and read the book in English. And if you want to, you always have the backup version in French that you can check. You can check for the translations just to make sure that you're understanding. But for you, I would recommend doing it in the opposite direction. So reading it in French after you've maybe already read it in English, and then using the English version to check and make sure that you understand, or that you can look up any expressions or words that you might not understand in French. So yeah, just go for it. Find a language buddy. It could even be somebody online or at your local library, and just start practicing your French. Even just start reading, kids' books in French, or start watching really basic little videos on YouTube for kids, even in French. Of course, there's lots of language lessons online that you can follow as well. So it's really important to make your language learning journey as fun as it possibly can be, just so that you'll stick with it. Because motivation and time are the most important factors, the most important predictors of success in language learning. So hopefully the motivation and the fun that you're having will counteract the moments of frustration. I mean, you will definitely experience those times when you feel like you're not making progress or you're in some type of situation where you get tongue-tied and you totally feel incompetent. I mean, this still happens to me even after all of these years. I think most of the time in social situations, I feel pretty comfortable at expressing myself in French, but there are still moments when I'm in some sort of like high stakes environment or talking to somebody that I don't know, or, feeling anxious or feeling pressure for some reason, and I just can't find my words, or I feel like I'm not able to express myself. And it's always okay. Usually the person that I'm talking to is giving me the benefit of the doubt and being very patient with me. And no one has ever hung up on me when I was searching for my words or something when I was on the phone. So don't worry about it. But it is something I think to be aware of, and it is something that you need to plan for. And again, the way that you can counteract this is just to start learning French as quickly as possible and giving it your best effort, because it really will pay off in the end. Hard truth number 2. If you are planning on working in France, you should prepare for the fact that your salary is probably going to be much, much lower than what you're used to making. I'm an English teacher with a master's degree and over 20 years of teaching experience. Depending on the month, my take-home pay is usually between 1,900 and 2,400 euros. The minimum wage, called the SMIC here, is about 1,400 euros. That's for full-time employment. A good professional salary for someone working here in Dijon, for example, might be between 2,500 and 3,000 euros net. There was actually just a huge public debate here because the former Prime Minister, François Bayrou, whose name I find very difficult to pronounce for some reason, just told a journalist that he thought that someone who made 4,000 euros a month net was not rich. Whereas when you look at the statistics, only about 12% of the working population makes that much or more, and the median salary in France is around 2,000 euros a month. This is something that has been sort of hard to accept over time. I mean, I didn't go into teaching to make a lot of money, obviously, and I know that even in other countries, teachers are not necessarily very well paid either. But, it can be hard sometimes. And I do have to remind myself that we still have a really relatively good quality of life here. And there are certain things that I don't necessarily have to worry about the cost of on a daily basis. Really big expenses that I know people worry about in other countries that are not necessarily on my radar here. So whereas my salary is quite low, I still have a decent peace of mind and a good lifestyle. For those of you who have watched this channel in the past, you know that my husband and I have been trying to diversify our income streams in a sense to try to compensate for the fact that our salaries are relatively low. So for example, we converted our garage into a short-term rental and we operate that. And it's been quite successful, and we've been able to make a lot of sort of extra income that way. And we've been taken that extra income and invested in some other rental real estate properties in an effort to sort of just ensure our future retirement income, and also hopefully one day just sort of boost our regular monthly income as well. I sincerely doubt that this is news to anybody, that moving to France to become an English teacher is not necessarily the path to guaranteed riches. In fact, probably most middle-class jobs will pay you a lot less here than you're maybe used to earning in other parts of the world. But it's just something to think about, to consider, and I think to plan for. You can have a great quality of life if you adjust your expectations and maybe even diversify your income a little bit. Hard truth number 3, your accomplishments and your impressive credentials might not matter as much when you come to France. This was something that I sort of had to accept over time. And it was kind of like when I first arrived here, I realized that where I had gone to school made no difference, and that I wasn't going to be able to play the name game with people and like, oh, you know this person? Oh, did you go to I went to high school. I went to college with this person. And, that just doesn't exist because you've arrived here at a later point in your life and you just don't have those connections. And not only that, but what you studied and where you went to school doesn't really matter. Nobody asks you about that. And so you kind of are starting with a with a clean slate. You're kind of starting from nothing when you arrive in France. The good news is over time, you will make those connections again. And I think that I have luckily been able to make a lot of professional connections over the course of my time here in Dijon. So it's fine, but it is definitely something that's a bit disconcerting when you first arrive here in France. I think it's because, for me anyway, part of my identity was kind of connected to where I was from or where I had gone to school. And those are such easy go-to icebreakers in social situations, I think, in the States. Whereas here, for example, it just doesn't matter. It's just not a topic of conversation. So you sort of feel like those parts of your identity are kind of minimized in a sense. And I remember even one time talking to somebody and saying that I was thinking about some of my strengths that I had that I could kind of tout to potential employers, for example. And I mentioned that I spoke English, that I was a native English speaker. And the person said to me, yeah, well, like everyone speaks English now. And I thought, oh no, if I don't even have that going for me, then what do I have going for me? So it's just kind of taking the time to figure out, what is important and what social markers do count for people here. And remembering that your identity, your past, of course, it's not totally erased. You still have that. And it does feel so good when you sort of reconnect with old friends and you can relive old, experiences that you've had together. And for some reason, it's just it's really heartwarming for me when I'm sort of, reconnected with old friends, because here I feel like my history is just newer in a sense, although I've been here for so long now that I do feel like I have a connection and I have been able to spend a lot of time and have had significant experiences with friends and family members here as well. So it gets better with time, but at first it's definitely a bit tricky to navigate, but then you'll start having new experiences here that do matter to people that you can talk about and that people will value. And yeah, you are kind of starting fresh, but that's okay. Hard truth number 4. This sort of hit me yesterday. This is how I got the idea for this video. The dreamy French life that you might be envisioning is not going to be a reality every day. Yesterday was the 3rd day in a row, I think, that it was rainy and gloomy, and it's gloomy again today. And I worked in the morning, and then I had to race home at lunch on my bike in the rain to clean our Airbnb because we had a turnover yesterday. And then I had to race back to work on my bike in the rain. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, this is not exactly what I envisioned when I thought of moving to France. Don't get me wrong, there are moments when life is absolutely beautiful, when we're eating delicious food or relaxing with friends over a long leisurely lunch, or, it's an absolutely beautiful day and we're out in one of the public gardens in town. And I just pinch myself. I can't quite believe that this is my life. But most of the time, I'm just tinkering around the house, cooking, cleaning, unloading the dishwasher, taking care of my kids, getting ready for work, going off to work, coming home from work. And most of the time, it's not glamorous at all. Life is just life here as well. I mean, it's just as mundane and routine as it is anywhere else in the world. On the whole, I do feel lucky to live here. I really do think that we have a good quality of life and a certain peace of mind that I really, truly appreciate. So those are the 4 hard truths that I wanted to share with you today. First, the better your French, the easier and the faster your integration into society here will be. Second, if you are planning on working here, your salary may be significantly lower than what you are used to earning elsewhere. Third, some of your credentials and accomplishments and connections from your home country might just not be as useful here in France. And finally, daily life here is just like daily life anywhere else, filled with dirty dishes, grocery shopping, and laundry, albeit with easy access to delicious wine, amazing pastries, and affordable healthcare. And I'm telling you these things not to discourage you, but just to help you to mentally prepare. 17 years later, I feel like I've come to accept these things. Granted, I'm still trying to navigate my way through some of them, even to this day. For those of you who are already living here in France, who have already made the leap, let us know in the comments below if there's anything else that I missed. I'm sure there are more hard truths out there that I've just overlooked. So let us know in the comments below. And for those of you who are still in the information gathering stage and would like to know more about my life here in France, I will link to a playlist here where you can check out more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, à bientôt. Former Prime Minister François Bayrou.